Once upon a time in the quiet village of Sundarpur, life flowed slowly, measured by the sun and the seasons. The villagers knew one another well. In this village that a humble farmer named Hari lived. Hari was a quiet man in his 50s, known for his honesty and gentle nature. He lived alone on the edge of the village with his small herd of cows. Unlike the other farmers, he never rushed the market, never chased profit. Instead, he treated his cows with care, speaking to them softly, brushing them as though they were old friends, feeding them not only grains but attention and affection. His neighbors often teased him, saying, "Hari, why care so much? They're just cows! They don't give back like people do." But Hari would only smile and reply, "Trust is not about what you get. It's about what you give." One chilly morning, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, a newcomer arrived in Sundarpur. A wealthy merchant named Ratan had purchased land near the village and began buying products from the villagers: rice, vegetables, milk. He promised fair prices but insisted on paying later. Over time, however, it became clear that Ratan's promises were empty. Several villagers were left unpaid for months. Slowly, suspicion crept into Sundarpur. Farmers stopped lending a helping hand. Neighbors no longer trusted each other with even the simplest favors. Fear had become a wall between hearts. Hari, however, remained untouched by the growing doubt. His cows, especially one gentle brown cow named Moti, continued to thrive under his care. Moti was unlike the others. She was calm, patient, and seemed to understand Hari's words as if he were telling her secrets. Children would come to Hari's farm to play, and Moti would allow them to sit on her back, walk alongside them, and even nuzzle them gently when they cried. In a village that had begun to mistrust the world, Moti was a symbol of quiet faithfulness. One evening, as the villagers gathered for the weekly market, a rumor spread Ratan had disappeared, leaving behind unpaid debts to almost everyone. Anger and fear erupted. "We were fools to trust him," villagers shouted. "We cannot trust anyone anymore." The market, usually filled with chatter and laughter, became tense and silent. Some farmers decided to stop producing altogether, afraid that trusting someone, even within the village, might bring them loss. Hari walked through the market quietly, carrying a small basket of milk from his cows. He overheard the complaints and noticed the hard lines forming on faces he had once known as kind. Something inside him ached, not for the lost money, but for the villagers' broken trust. He set down his basket and called the villagers to gather near the banyan tree at the center of the market. "Everyone," Hari began, his voice soft but firm, "I know you are afraid. I know your hearts have been hurt. But there is something I want to show you, something you might have forgotten." Curious and somewhat irritated, the villagers followed him to the edge of his farm. There, in the golden light of the setting sun, Moti grazed calmly. Hari patted her gently. "This is Moti," he said. "She has been with me for years. I have trusted her, and she has never let me down. She does not speak, she does not make promises. Yet, every day, she gives me milk, companionship, and joy. I have never doubted her because I have cared for her, and she has cared for me in return." The villagers exchanged puzzled glances. "Hari, we are not cows," one man said sharply. "We cannot survive if we trust blindly. People cheat. People lie. You understand that, don't you?" Hari nodded. "I understand. But trust is not blind. Trust is built slowly every day with small actions. Moti did not earn my trust in a day. She earned it because I treated her with patience, care, and honesty. Trust is not something you demand, it is something you nurture." A young boy, curious and wide-eyed, stepped forward. "Can she really understand you?" he asked, touching Moti's soft coat. "She understands more than we think," Hari replied. "Trust begins when you stop seeing others as threats and start seeing them as partners." Even humans can do this if we are willing to act with kindness, consistency, and patience. That night, the villagers returned home, but Hari's words lingered. They watched Moti through the distance, seeing her gentle movements, her patience with Hari, her calmness. Slowly, a thought took root in their minds. Perhaps trust could grow again. Not overnight, not by chance, but through careful, intentional effort. Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened. The villagers began small acts of trust. A farmer lent seeds to a neighbor whose crop had failed. Another allowed a child to borrow a bicycle, expecting it to be returned. Slowly, small cracks appeared in the wall of fear that had enclosed Sundarpur. One morning, tragedy struck. A storm had swept through the village overnight. The river swelled and broke through its banks. Many homes and farmlands were flooded. Panic and despair gripped the villagers. They ran to save their belongings, but fear again threatened to undo their fragile trust. Hari, however, ran to Moti. He led her to higher ground and guided the villagers to safety. Moti moved calmly among them, helping children climb onto safe platforms, nudging lost animals away from danger. Her presence, calm and steadfast, reassured the villagers. They realized then that trust, once given and nurtured, could guide them even through fear and chaos. When the storm passed, the village gathered to assess the damage. Crops were ruined, houses battered, and yet, something had changed. Where fear had once reigned, trust now lingered. Neighbors helped rebuild one another's homes. Farmers shared what little seed and food they had. Slowly, Sundarpur began to recover, not just materially, but in spirit. A few weeks later, Moti gave birth to a calf. The villagers gathered to see the small brown creature wobble on its legs, delicate yet alive. Hari smiled, tears in his eyes, and said, "Trust grows just like this calf. It starts small, fragile, and unsure. But with care, patience, and love, it becomes strong and life-giving." From that day on, Moti became more than just a cow. She became a symbol in Sundarpur, a living reminder that trust is not naive, it is an act of courage. The villagers learned to give trust slowly, nurture it carefully, and protect it fiercely. They realized that while people may disappoint, trust is not a gift for the knave. It is a seed for those brave enough to care and act consistently, even in the face of uncertainty. Years passed, and Sundarpur transformed. Children played freely, families shared openly, and markets once again buzzed with laughter and trust. Travelers passing through the village often marveled at the peace and warmth they found there, asking how such a small place had achieved such harmony. The villagers would smile and point toward the farm at the edge of the village. "It began with a cow," they would say. "A cow named Moti taught us to trust." Hari, now older and slower in his steps, would sit by Moti's side, stroking her fur as he had for decades. "You have taught them well," he whispered to her. Moti blinked calmly, her eyes full of quiet understanding, as if she had always known the power of trust. And in that moment, Hari realized the truth. He had always known trust is not a reward, it is a journey, a practice, and the greatest gift one can give or receive.